Can I ask you something? All these memories and timelines. How do you decide what's real? Look around, figure out what you believe is true right now, and just commit to it.
Peace. Now it's the vibrate. Y'all know what it is. Just a little notion on the shadow to just make it more clearer. I feel like when you add these practical aspects of looking at it, again, as above, so below, as within, so without. When you look at it from the practicality of how it shows up in our mundane experience, it also gives you that big aha moment of like, oh, all right, that makes sense. You know, much love to Bridge of Ra for also breaking this down on his channel. But it's that time for me, for my own, insights and meditations to give a little expression of that, even further. And how the darkness or the primordial darkness itself is more so the primary darkness. The shadow is secondary darkness. And just because it's secondary doesn't mean to judge it. So it doesn't mean to judge, the shadow just because it's secondary. It's just to understand that it is secondary. And how it just came to me was like, again, within our experience, imagine if you follow, like you put your intuition to the side and you only walked or made movements based off of like following your shadows. So like, you step outside and you see your shadow on the ground and you just start walking, in the direction of where you see your shadow. You might run into all kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, just again, and that would be based off of also, in essence, from where quote unquote outside, so a secondary light, because the primordial darkness is within, the light is within. So externally with our two eyes, and this points to, again, like more of the illusion being external than internal. No judgment towards the external because it is a part of the experience, but it's like following a secondary light because your shadow shows up on the ground due to where the secondary sun at. And I'm saying secondary compared to your internal sun, your internal gut, solar plexus, sunshine, Manipur, Jewel City, sunlight within, you know what I'm saying? But, you following secondary light and then secondary darkness. And quite literally, again, in the mundane aspect of it, but then also metaphysically, it goes the same way, So if you're following a secondary light, basically pushing your intuition aside and just following external light and your external shadow or darkness, but more so shadow to be specific, again, like you're going to be bumping into things. Like right now, if I get up and start walking based on my shadow, I would just start walking. What direction this is, let's see, northeast. I would just start walking northeast no matter what, because I'm just following my shadow, you know what I'm saying? So just within that notion, simply, as above, so below, as within, so without. But importantly, again, like understanding the shadow work is important because it is for you to understand what your shadow is, so you don't get lost in the sauce when you are connecting with others and their shadows or their secondary light. Because if you're not doing your shadow work or dealing with understanding your secondary darkness, then when somebody else's secondary darkness comes along, you could get confused and things could get all mixed up. So first and foremost, you know, understanding, you know, your shadow aspect, so you don't get lost in the sauce by other shadow aspects. Again, with a Yu-Gi-Oh reference, and it was Yu-Gi-Oh GX, and basically, like, one of the characters who had their shadow, you know, basically, or in essence, they didn't have no part of them that, you know, like, they dislike or felt like, you know, judgmental. Basically, he didn't have any judgment towards himself on certain levels, or didn't condemn himself on certain levels. So because he didn't have like no regrets or no ways he was like internally condemning himself, aka, you know, like in essence being judgmental towards your quote unquote shadow, because he lacked that energy, like the person who he was dueling against, you know, was trying to like say certain things to get him to, you know, feel judgment or feel shame or feel, you know, regret, or to judge himself in some type of way. But, you know, it wasn't, you know, it's almost like he like, bro, like, what you even doing? And not in so much in the ignorant is bliss type of way, but just in the sense of like, you know, again, like he lacked that judgment towards himself. And you even see like why children, you know, that innocence of a child, you know, where if they're not taught to dislike or judge or shame this certain parts of themselves, then they don't have that type of shadow energy. And again, like mostly all the videos I done spoke on when bringing up the shadow on a physical human experience level, you know, the shadow, and this relates to, you know, the spiritual family on other levels. But the first 7 years of our programming, but more so the first time in your experience, when you come into, you crying, you come out of your mom's womb, the first time you able to comprehend things and somebody tell you, hey, this is undesirable behavior, this is desirable behavior. Again, it's like the realm almost like MK Ultra in you, you know, and causing a split, you know. And so now digging in my nose, the part of me that digs in my nose is evil, because my mom and dad said that's bad. And that's not to say that, you know, like, yes, it may not be the healthiest thing to dig in your nose, but there's a thin line of like, hey, you know, that's not the thing to do, but don't judge it. You feel me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's not the healthiest thing to dig in your nose and shake somebody's hand. At the same time, you know, don't judge yourself if that happened to happen, or don't judge others who dig in their nose and shake people's hand. You know what I'm saying? So just keeping it, you know what I'm saying, on a just elementary level, but that, again, that helps to, you know, solidify more and more and refine it more and more, you know, within ourselves. You know, it's like, hey, you know, the shadow is the secondary light, the external sun is the secondary light. And I remember a while back also, this been coming up too, you know, when I was just, again, just like on some channeling vibes, I'm like, you know, like the sun feels like a door, like the way I explained it was like a keyhole in essence, but it's like, or the part of the torus, so you got your torus field and you got the part that pushes out light, and you got the part that sucks light in. And, you know, I was like, well, it was like three. I was like, is it, you know, a keyhole, an eye hole, and a part of a torus field was like the three things I brought up about, you know, the sun. Where it could be like a keyhole, like if you're in the closet and somebody turned the light on, so it's dark while you're in the closet, and somebody turned the light on outside the closet, you know, it's like you get that little shining through the keyhole or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like the light or the heat friction, but it's not that hot, but, you know, but the light friction, you know, comes through the keyhole. Or like being inside of a being's, you know, again, as above, so below, as within, so without. We're like inside of a being, and like if you was like inside the part of the head of the being, in that darkness, in essence, and it was visualizing light. That light or that heat, would come in and shine a light internally. You know what I'm saying? And then the third, again, like a Taurus field, or like not say if, but like the concept or the aspect of a Taurus field, where it's, bringing in energy through one area, pushing it out through another, like a little cycle, in, out. With a part, if we are inside the Taurus field and we're looking at the part that's drawing energy in, then it will be bright, it will be intense, because that's a bunch of light coming through one hole. You know what I'm saying? So, you get that notion of, like, again, that secondary light, secondary darkness, not to be judged, again, like, not to judge the Yadala Broth energy and, all of the archonic energies, not to judge the moon, Saturn, Jupiter, all this. And again, first and foremost, realizing that it's inside or internal first and foremost. You feel me? But again, you see that subtle nuance, or that's redundant. You see that nuance of how the shadow is secondary, and hence why it's like, forget what somebody else saying, in the sense of, like, rushing into, certain partnerships or relationships, if you still getting your shadow, what I'm saying, like, you still understanding your shadow, unless, for 100% fact that whoever you're connecting with, they're doing their best to, like, be aware of their shadow, and, like, it's a mutual, like, hey, I'm getting my shadow together, hey, I'm getting my shadow together too, let's make sure that we do our best to not, disrupt each other, and be aware of this as we're being in this relationship or this partnership. But again, that would be just a simple way of seeing the shadow, literally and figuratively speaking. Secondary, but don't judge it, because then that is causing a whole another duality cycle. So now is the vibrating. Also, I want to share that this is brought to you by grounding by eucalyptus tree. Eucalyptus tree energy is like, refreshing, what I'm saying, kind of brings in a, like a rejuvenating, refreshing energy. And then I also did some Tai Chi exercises, and it was dealing with the turtle pose. So just wanted to add that in there, because, that's for somebody, what I'm saying. Somebody probably on the fence about doing some Tai Chi work or something like that, or, was about to buy some essential oils, and like, what essential oils I should get? Maybe the eucalyptus. But anyway, now it's a vibrate, and again, share, like, but there's just more refinement of, things that we already spoke on. Now it's a vibrate, not too far in the future, not too far in the past, right now. I just had to do this as an example. I see, bam. So I just start walking this way. Oh, bam, right into a tree. There ain't nothing wrong with a tree. But again, if I was just to follow my shadow, then I'd just be continuously walking that way. Now, as the saying goes, not saying the shadow is broke, but how they say a broke clock is right at least twice a day. So if a broke clock sitting at 12 o'clock, the needle stop at 12, at least it's gonna be right 2 times a day, in noontime and midnight, what I'm saying? But that's out of 23 hours of the day. So yeah, if I follow this shadow towards this way, I'm pretty sure at certain moments I'll come across some things that's beneficial. But for the most part, you know what I'm saying, I gotta follow the path of the harmony of the shadow, harmony of the light. So harmony of the inner light, harmony of the inner darkness, you know, had me on the proper path, you feel me?